we'll see more people kind of filtering in, but we might as well get going. It's 11 o'clock. Jerry's got places to be. So I'm Adam Flynn. If you don't know me, this is Bobby Carey, Braden Croy, and our special guest, Jerry Silva. The three of us are with the Dominion Energy Innovation Center here in Ashland. We're a nonprofit energy technology incubator and accelerator, working to support entrepreneurs who are, building the future of the energy grid in Virginia. And so this is a topic near and dear to our hearts. We have Jerry joining us today from the Tobacco Region Revitalization Fund, where he leads the Energy Ingenuity Fund. I got all that right. He did. And so we're going to be talking about doing energy projects in South and Southwest Virginia today, how the Ingenuity Fund is helping make that happen, where Jerry's at in terms of sort of leading the existing projects in that fund, the new application that's open, and then we'll talk a bit about kind of what we're seeing energy-wise coming into the state. And then we have lots of time. We'll try and leave lots of time for Q&A. Braden and Bobby are managing that. So thank you for joining us this morning. Again, we want to get to questions. I think probably as we go, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll get to them. So let me introduce Jerry. You want to give us the quick intro about TRRF and the Ingenuity Fund?
Sure, TRRC, yes. TRRC, and so the Tobacco Revitalization, Regional Revitalization Commission, yes. And so, that was part of a settlement agreement between, tobacco companies many moons ago. But before I start, I really want to thank Bobby for putting this together, Braden and you, Adam. You guys have been great supporters of the program and what we're trying to accomplish here. So, and then thank you for last year's award. I really enjoyed myself at that event and was quite taken aback by being honored for that award. But thank you again for all the things that you guys do and trying to promote, especially the education component of energy. I think that is highly important, especially for this community and everybody, and especially legislators that really don't fully understand sometimes all the intricacies that are involved in energy. I mean, you've seen it, we've all seen it, and we're all trying to get there and making sure that whatever policy is adopted, they fully understand what those implications are, especially on the new term, at least in different areas, is now energy affordability. So I'll get a little bit into that a little bit later, but that's a whole topic in itself.
Yes,
that I've come across many times in many different speaking engagements. So with that, for those who know, this was our fifth round of funds that we just announced that are going to the commission meeting in September 23rd and 24th.
Okay.
So we're scheduled to go for that round. So this round that's open right now is going to basically be our sixth round of energy funds. And for the little bit of those that are online that don't know the history, we actually were allocated a allocation of $12 million as part of this effort. And because of that, we've already exhausted or gone through an allocation of about half of that, $6 million. So we are roughly, it's not equal, but we've got about roughly, $3 million for Southern and $3 million left for Southwest. And I think Southwest has a 10. And of course, Southern has a little bit less. So with that, the fund itself, I'm often asked, hey, what are you looking for? What type of projects?
Yeah.
So some of the past projects that we've actually funded, which I think is important about this energy fund, is we've done a lot of stuff on planning grants, especially in the area of waste energy. We've done planning grants in terms of where the feedstock is at and located within the Southwest areas. We've looked at, where the skill sets will be, especially on the energy fronts, especially where you have the military towards the Norfolk area, coming out of our military, and those that are leaving the military may look for different job skills and how that's going to look in terms of the various energy skills. From everything from a welder, you're looking for, especially on the nuclear side, to, SMR is the biggest buzzword going around right now. Of course, you still have wind that's out there, and you have other, geothermal's another big one of this current administration.
Yeah.
Those are all new skill sets that are going to be needed for that one, of course. So with that, we've had a lot of energy planning grants associated with, those areas, especially waste energy it's been one, and I'll get into that a little bit later. We've had one from you. You want to talk a little bit about what you guys propose, or you and Braden would be great. So that was an innovation center development.
Yeah, we were honored to have an award. We haven't fully completed it or executed it yet, but to study the various opportunities for further entrepreneurship support and resource discovery and kind of aggregation in the Dinwiddie area. So down in the kind of southern part of Region 4, where a lot of our focus also stems from and going into support the broader Virginia and into their economic development activities down there. So yeah, we're excited to get to study how we can bring more resources to bear and really marry those up with a lot of the innovative resources that Dominion has there, as well as everything that you're bringing about in your job. So I mean, it's those partnerships between the economic development organizations like Virginia Gateway Region, from the planning district commissions like the Greater Planning District Commission, and then the utilities and private nonprofits, very much like TRRC and DEIC, coming together to really focus and work together to move that energy transition and really just our energy economy and our energy ecosystem forward.
So that's a good segue, Braden, into what I'm going to bring up. One of the challenges I found when first coming out here is I would often ask, hey, where are the load centers within the Southwest region? So, and the reason I say that is because that's kind of where your energy hubs are located, right? Whether it's electricity or natural gas, water, you name it, that's where data centers are looking for. Okay? Where can the most energy be actually utilized in these areas and energy plants? Now, what I found from that is the reason I liked your project so much, it starts to build on gathering information on where the energy infrastructure is or isn't. The gaps. I'm looking for the gaps. And so I realized that was an opportunity to find out and fill some gaps as to what energy does exist, what infrastructure does exist, and what you're looking at. I'm looking at for that study to come back as to, hey, this is how much our transmission can handle in that area. This is how much, hey, potentially water we do or do not have in that area, and what natural gas infrastructure exists. And so you'd be surprised. I have actually funded or made recommendations to fund planning grants along that same line. Now, fast forward, here's what's coming forward, at least in this last round that I just recently announced, about 2-3 weeks ago now, with this next round of funding, is I'm starting to see interest in SMRs.
Yeah.
And we have one that actually is going to be submitted by a particular county that I'm aware of for an SMR site that they're looking to move forward. Apparently, they're looking at possibly 2-3 different locations. Of course, part of that planning grant is going to be, hey, we've got some specific sites in mind that we're looking at. The developer has made it clear. I'm looking at both what can be handled from an energy perspective, a water perspective for the data centers as well, and natural gas. So that's what's coming forward. The other one that's come forward as well is coal mines. There's both an abandoned coal mine and existing areas where in one particular county they have access to what's been called reclaimed coal mine areas, and they want to get a certain radius of infrastructure along those areas. They're looking to identify both water, existing, transmission, distribution, access, gas line infrastructure, things that should be looked at and gathered as part of data, right? As part of collecting information and being able. Now, the one good thing that I've done both with your grant and other grants is I'm of the mindset, although we're a state agency, I don't know if this has ever been done before, but I made it a point with, if we're funding that study, we, in my mind, we are required to be also the author of collecting that data and being able to share it across other entities. And so I don't know if that's ever been done, but the way I see it, coming from the sector that I came from previously in the utility sector, is if I'm paid for data, I should be entitled to be able to share it. So someone changed my mind. I am open to changing my mind, but so far nobody's been able to do that. So, so contracts have gone out with, hey, we're going to fund this. We're entitled to the data. Now, having said that, I've learned from this one we just did is I gotta probably be more specific as to, I don't want the data in hard copy format.
Mhm.
But in digital format that we can be able to export. The good news is you learn as you do this, going what should be known as, it's gotta be exportable, not exportable. I gotta define it as, you gotta go into either, what is it, EPRI is one particular format, some kind of database format that people can actually utilize it, especially other entities.
So, we have a good number of people on here so far. I'm gonna reiterate, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat, and we'll try and get, back and forth going as we go. I know we've done this a couple times now, but it's probably still worth reiterating. Like, what are some of the basics of the grant process? So like, what are the mechanics? We mentioned planning grants versus other grants. Like, what are the types of grants people can apply? Just some of the basics, not the whole shit, but like, what is it people can apply for? What are they supposed to be bringing to the table? Like, what do you want to see, right? Because we're talking about a pre-application phase right now. So what kinds of things need to go into the pre-application?
So on the pre-application phase, I designed it so it's literally a 5. If it's taking you longer than 10 minutes, you're technically challenged. And I say that with a lot of tongue in cheek, but it shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes because I'm looking for the concept. I am looking basically, what have you done to fill out that paperwork of your particular, and we can actually pull it online. It really is, hey, what's your project area? What are you looking to do? And if you tweak my interest enough with a 1-pager or a PowerPoint presentation that you develop, that means some thought has already gone into what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
It should not be a completely pie in the sky type of concept. It should be something that is in the energy field, that's either innovative towards generation is what I'm really focused on.
Yeah.
It's got to be somewhere in the generation or the energy skill sets.
So it can be either a planning grant, like we've talked about, right? Where it's a study, we're going to produce data,
Right.
that can be exported to you,
Right.
that is going to identify infrastructure gaps around energy use, right? So we're talking, there's a planning grant, which has a dollar figure attached to it, or a project grant where someone has come and said, we want to build this thing in this place.
Correct. So one of them actually was a grant that was in the executable stage.
Okay.
Which they already had done all the planning. They had done all the engineering planning. They're already in the point of, we're ready to execute.
Yeah.
So we gave them a grant, and it was a waste energy grant that we gave them because they're ready. The county has bought off on this.
Okay.
They already showed where they're at. They're already in, literally, we're ready to roll it out stage. So if you're in that stage and you're going, hey, we want to add this element of what we're looking to do, we're going to bring in this many jobs, and you can justify those, those what I call those investor decks or those rollout decks, then I'm happy to entertain that particular project as well.
And so a project like that that's ready to be executed, what's the dollar?
The max on that one I gave was $1 million for that.
Okay. So that's
The one I gave on a battery storage was $2 million.
there we go.
Okay.
That was the ambulance.
That was the handle, right?
That one was ready to go to council. I loved what they had to do. They were going to be load shaving, demand shaving, call it whatever you want, but they were going to do it during their peak demand.
Yep.
And the amount of savings that they were going to look at was pretty phenomenal. It's going to pay for itself in a short period of time. Now, the reason I did it to that one versus maybe some other entity, I got to stress this. You cannot be a private entity in this.
That was my next question.
Okay.
All right, so talk us through who can apply for this money? Because it's not, you can't, I can't show up as LLC and ask Jerry for money for a battery.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you have to be able to persuade either a county
Okay.
or an economic development agency or some type of township or city that's willing
It
to
falls within tobacco.
fall within our tobacco footprint.
Yeah.
And it's all on our website, where if you needed to go see what those cities and counties are, it's all on there. And they need to be bought into the process of, hey, this is going to bring potentially this planning grant or this execution grant will bring jobs to the area community and be part of that process.
So it's the applicant is going to be a locality.
Yes. Well, and it could be a nonprofit.
Correct.
That's the third element to this whole thing. Again, either an economic development agency, if you're a Go Virginia, which is an economic development, or what's the other one? Why am I drawing a blank in the economic development?
Like we were working with Virginia's Gateway region.
Yeah,
Right,
I
like
would
now it's economic development team, yeah, we were, so it can come through.
Reseda is the other one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
That's out in Southwest.
Okay.
So if you're an economic development agency or nonprofit, that happens to, doesn't have to be in the Southwest area, it can be a nonprofit outside, it just has to, the project area, the project you're actually specifically pursuing has to be in the Southwest area.
So, and then I did want to ask you this sort of as a follow-up to that, right? So, a lot of these then, the planning study might be a little bit different, right? Because the economic development team might know who they would want to hire to help them, or they do it themselves with the planning study. But an executable project means, like Jason at Danville is showing up, he's already a vendor, right? If you had counties or economic development groups show up and say, we have an idea about this project, but we don't necessarily have a vendor in mind.
Okay, that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay.
But if it has, I'd probably recommend, at least 2 or 3 that I'm aware of and say, go,
Right.
And the other thing I'm starting to see is one particular, I got to word this very carefully. I'm seeing one particular vendor right now that is trying to monopolize that particular arena. Going, hey, we got one over here. I think we're going to go over here. I'm probably going to make a case. I want to see more. I want to see more competition among that. So, in this particular case, in Danville's case, they already had somebody lined up. In other cases, I'd love to know that they went out to bid. They got 2 or 3 other bids, and that would be the best potential. So I'll probably ask more questions when I see the next round where
an experienced project manager.
Exactly.
Project.
I am well versed in going, all right, they're trying to gain the system. So I am going to be pretty adamant about, making sure that doesn't happen. I want to be sure that the entity is not buying off on it just because, something else got approved over someone else. I want to make sure that they've done their due diligence and they're doing their best to adhere to the guidelines of, hey, did you do an RFP? If so, let me know. I want to be intimately involved with that.
Any questions so far, or am I gonna? All right, I'm gonna keep going. That's great. All right, so that's kind of the mechanics. So we have, what did you say? It was mid-November, right? Is when the pre-app is due.
November 17th. Now, what I want to encourage everybody, that's the last day for pre-apps. The reason I opened it up even earlier this time, my goal is to try to get as many submittals on the pre-apps as early as possible, so I can get as many of you going on your application process. The one thing I've learned in the previous round, I was convinced by some of my colleagues, hey, let's not do a pre-app in the previous round. And in doing so, I realized I didn't have as many applicants. And because the application process is actually a lot more requirements and time is usually required, a lot more people just, oh my God, that's too much work. I mean, we require a budget, we require a business plan, we require all these other requirements that go into, which require time. I'd rather it be spent, not because, oh, the due date's not till this time, it's only 5 minutes in the middle. It's the application phase, you're gonna need the time. I'd rather get your pre-application in, look at, review it, and then if you meet my requirements, I'll move you on to the application phase. It gives you a little more time.
Right. Well, and you like to give people feedback, give them input.
Exactly. I encourage it.
Yes.
In fact, I've had at least a couple already scheduled two virtual meetings with a third one on them.
All right.
So for me, it's like, yeah, I'll help you through it. And especially if they're trying to, pull out a concept that they've been working on, they just don't know. I mean, I just met with one last week that is looking at expanding their operation, but they're looking to expand it into the energy space, into the Tobacco Commission, which is all encouraged. And when they walked me through it, I said, well, are you looking at this as your primary, or are you looking at this as your primary? And they go, no, we're looking at the energy side as well. So, okay, then I would consider it.
Okay.
What's the best way for us to reach out for them? One-on-one and just email you?
My email's on there. Yeah, email. I'm pretty responsive on email. You don't get an email response within 36 hours, then I didn't get it. That's what I tell everybody. my contact information's all there, and as Adam will attest, I'm pretty good and responsive on,
Yeah, you are.
especially if you text me. Call me, it's a little different because I'm everywhere usually.
You might be somewhere with the governor. Some other big announcement.
I am definitely present. In fact, I've done more to reach out to the commissioners in this last round too, and making sure that they're aware they're just as much an ambassador as I am of the program. So when I met with them, a couple of them, and especially in the southern area, they were like, "Oh, I didn't realize I could look at that as an option." I said, "Thanks for letting me know." So they're letting other entities know that there's an opportunity for the cities and county buildings to be looked at as part of that energy fund.
We've talked in the stacking from various sources in order to get projects done, some of these larger and up until a year ago, I remember talking to this maybe the first round or two, we were talking about like there's all the IRA monies out there, all the money is out there. Just you can go grab federal money, you can bring it to Southwest Virginia, we compare it with Ingenuity Fund dollars. I would say, I think, we've seen a lot of right now conversations we've been having with people around the country is there's still uncertainty about what DOE is going to be funding now, where they're going forward. Some of the things you mentioned, categories where it looks like there's still going to be funding fail, right? So SMR, nuclear related stuff, something DOE is still picking up a lot about funding opportunities. Geothermal, we've seen a lot of announcements already. So there are obviously some places where there's still going to be DOE money that could be maybe paired up, right, or fair here in Southwest for one of these things. But has anybody brought a geothermal project to you yet?
Not yet, but I have been in discussion with Department of Defense.
Okay.
And so we have quarterly meetings where they talk about, the problem is that particular project is outside of us.
Oh,
so
they got to move it.
But they actually have some really good data. I mean, I've actually been privy to seeing what they've already collected. So you sit there and you're like, oh, that's good to know. Okay, but I said, you can't find something in our footprint. So again, there is data that exists. Yeah, there is data that's out there. It's just, again, some of it's not shared for different reasons. Yeah. Some of it's obvious, and some of it just depends on who holds the data. But with that said, I've actually met with some of my colleagues at DOE, my former colleagues, especially that I work with, and some of them said, Jerry, it's coming out. It's just what's happening is each department head is evaluating the dollars that they've been allocated, and they're trying to figure out, are they going to keep certain programs, or they, as you know, some programs are just being completely wiped out, right? And so they're going to start fresh on how that's going to go forward, or it's going to look different. Weatherization is one that's going to move forward. That just came out of one of the agencies' departments. And I'm aware of that because I looked at that because I had a pre-app and I had an application on weatherization. So I tried to see if there was a stacking opportunity on that, and there was, but the problem is weatherization is still being evaluated from our commission, whether that's a viable project. It's, again, I think the one thing I do want to stress is I do look for projects that are grid resilient, that have a added value of about 1 megawatt is sorely been our threshold. So anything that's about 1 megawatt or more is usually what we're trying to accomplish. So if the project can't reach that, it has a tougher challenge among my colleagues. The other thing that we look at is, okay, is impacting residential and little commercial and industrial users? Then of course that's probably not going to move forward as much as well. So we try to look for more of the economic development component from that standpoint.
Right. So you're balancing megawatt demand with the jobs, sort of, the push from TRRC originally is
economic development.
Economic development, right? It's a huge jobs component,
correct,
similar to Go Virginia. So that's got to be part of the forefront.
And it is, and we know that other programs exist even on the state level on some of these. So we look at that, and we just had another interesting ask by another entity that I'm like, they want to look at reducing their carbon footprint, but they're looking at biomass.
Okay.
So looking at the feedstock, and it's an entity that has their own budget already set aside, and so they're looking at they're looking at a planning grant to, and they feel they already have the technology to do this, and so they're going to look at some southwest areas for that biomass feed. So that was an interesting take. The challenge I had with them, I don't know how they fit in the three components of my, economic development.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, they're sort of a semi quasi federal agency, and I'm like, I gotta scratch my head on this one. So I'm getting pushed to the limits of creativity, So it's one of those questions I'm gonna have to go back to the office, and that meeting just took place 2 days ago, and I've been scratching my head going, all right, how am I gonna tee this one up and look at that and say, yeah.
It's like what he's got.
Dual purpose. Everything has to be dual purpose now, defense and energy.
But they looked at it as a partnership. So you look at it that way. I looked at it as, we may be onto something as one of the challenges I think we've all had with, and I think you've seen this. Sometimes we operate in silos.
Yeah.
And we don't really, do a lot of cross communication among groups that we're all trying to work together for the common good. So I think that's what we're trying to solve. And I told them, I said, let me get back to you, prepare your document, and we'll figure out how to. And I even told them, you might have to partner with a nonprofit. So I'm trying to be creative and problem solving here, but that's kind of the way it works.
Jerry, you've talked about a couple of times waste to energy being a big focus. I'm curious, as you've looked across Southwest Virginia, you also highlighted the kind of location and the concentration of those feedstocks being super important to those decisions. What are the feedstocks in the waste world that you're seeing across? Is that ag waste? Is it kind of a resurgence digestion, whether that's on municipal wastewater authority facilities or whether that's other types of landfill, renewable natural gas? Like what gets you excited? And then what assets are you seeing across Southwest Virginia and Southside Virginia that could really feed into that?
Well, the one for one particular county, I'll give you is more the cost for their own waste has gone up to transport it from one landfill to another.
Okay.
So they're looking at their own, that particular entity's looking at that. The other particular one that I looked at was more agricultural stock, and this particular one happens to be more of the wood chips and that particular area. So they're all three different fuels and in all three different elements, and so you're like, okay, let's see how this is going to play out. But again, they all have interesting takes on how they want to problem solve the area, and I'm not open to killing creativity. I'm more open to, all right, make sure you thought it through. Make sure you looked at everything from cradle to grave in terms of planning and what are the risks and what are the opportunities that you really see as part of this and the challenges that you have to overcome.
Decarbonization is not a stated mandate for any of your funds, right?
No.
It can be coal lands, it can be gas related. There's no carbon intensity score or other types of metrics.
Now the other one I did see when I was in Southwest, oddly enough, on the coal was their GOB.
Yeah,
I think so I'm educating myself in this area. So then apparently some see it as a waste and some see it as, hey, how do we take that and utilize that more as fuel as part of the waste energy? So the one I was sharing with you earlier, they're looking at, hey, how can we take one of these abandoned coal mines and they're looking at multiple megawatts of energy on that particular site. And so I can't say the minute I start trying to dig more, they're not looking at data. They're not looking at data centers. They're looking at the manufacturing of existing coal and utilizing about 4 megawatts of energy. So how do you take that and harness it in a different way, knowing that you're going to have to look at interconnect into the transmission, but you're going to have to look at water, gas as possibly feeding that energy part.
But the mining industry has been one of the leading kind of the electrification of mines and the electrification of heavy duty equipment that operates in those mines, right? And is really fascinating, just because of how much they have to run, and they're constrained underground when it comes to air quality.
Well, and here's something to know. On this particular coal mine, I did take a delegate and a group of the business people as part of that to DOE, and did put them in touch with the different people within the DOE, especially on what the loan program office would offer as part of, hey, if you're looking to do a project and you're looking to expand. I mean, they were like, you're the first coal company to approach us on that particular idea. So you know, again, coal mine is not something you want to get into.
Yeah.
But I think what they're trying to do is also be innovative in how they utilize their fuel in the past.
Right.
How can we be more efficient? How can we reduce, you know, the carbon impacts that you know, some people have been concerned about that have been released in the past. So, you know, I think everybody's trying to do their best to make sure that they're generating the most efficient, effective and use of the fuel in that particular case.
Are you hearing a lot from the commissioners about just broadly energy being the lack of economic development down there? I mean, is that the impetus? Do they?
I wouldn't say I'm hearing it from the commissioners. What I am hearing though is that certain projects can be, I mean, if you look at the forecast across the entire state of Virginia, we can't generate enough electricity to meet the demand. The forecasted 3 to 5 year plan of what the amount of energy that's needed for the state, we don't have the ability to generate it. So as a whole, you can almost say, you know, every commissioner, every elected official in the Southwest are going to be concerned going, hey, how do we attract more, keeping the rates low and affordable, but also making sure that we can meet future, you know, especially if you have existing manufacturing that's in the site trying to expand. And I know one particular entity we looked at, they were looking at going outside of the state because the rates were a little bit lower. So how do you make sure you can keep the energy rates affordable? And we did talk about that a little bit. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to make sure that you can meet the demand on certain areas and certain circuits and, you know, certain load centers that you have built in these areas, and some of it's not there. Yeah, some of it just can't be accommodated as quickly as you'd like to see it happen.
I think the stat that Virginia Energy tells you is that Virginia ranks first for energy imports in the country right now. Last year, Virginia imported more electricity than any other state in the country. I think we can all imagine why. Very interestingly. So I think before we got here, you're saying hydrogen and storage were kind of a big focus as when you really solve some point specifics. We don't have to import it as much, and we can actually move it more domestically in the state.
And you had, especially from this administration with Governor Youngkin, I mean, from Secretary of Commerce all the way down, there's been, you know, hey, how can we streamline permitting? How can we streamline the process? How can we make sure to accommodate as at least those detriments in other states, especially where I come from, where you could get tied up on permitting from a state grant, a state permit for years as opposed to months or weeks. So there's been a streamlining process definitely taking place. And anytime we've come across that, I'm working on, I just got dragged into a particular project on natural gas generation where they're saying, hey, Jared, we're tied up on this and it's a state permit. I'm like, well, who's known about this until I got involved? And they're like, quiet, because no one's escalated that manner. So now you realize, okay, you know, let's develop an escalation process as part of this and making sure you get the right people on to help, you know, at least get through that, to streamline that process.
Outside just the money and the financial support that comes with into the Ingenuity Fund, there's also all of that state support, and your municipalities and your commissioners are bought in for their communities, and they want to see these projects come to fruition. And so there's actually a really good non-monetary mechanism there that also comes with all of these.
They have, and they've asked me to push this out to. They said, Jerry, we want that funds out to the streets as fast as possible. So, and once you learn the process, you realize, you know, the applicant's also responsible for part of that, because some of them got to sign the contracts. I mean, you know this, you're experiencing it now, right? You got to get the contracts out. We have certain requirements that have to be met, and some of that falls on, you know, the applicant.
Absolutely. You know, you want to be as ready as possible, right? All right. Well, let me restate again. If you have questions, jump in. Or we're just doing an incredible job of explaining, which sometimes we do. So just want to restate the basics. Bobby's previously pulled up the website, but we have the Ingenuity Fund is open now, pre-applications through November 17th. We want people to get those in as early as possible so they can get your feedback as quickly as possible on what to do. If you move ahead with the full application, that's when you really need to button up the plan, right? Because you gotta put all of these together, make sure you have the right applicant coming in. You have the project pretty well known what you want to do. Jerry's been doing this for a long time, so he loves the details of project management and how things are going to get done and who's going to pay for them and what the returns are going to be. And
I get into the weeds. You know how to get in the weeds. I know how to move stuff.
I've talked about this before. You like to get into the weeds.
Yeah, and I know somebody has not thought it through. And so, and I, as you know, I'll call them out.
You will, but it's not maliciously because your job is to get the money out the door.
Right.
So you want to get the money out the door, but the project needs to be as buttoned up as possible.
Right.
And then they're gonna go through the process. So for the pre-app due November 17th, when is the date? Do you know already what commission?
You will have a response to me with a pre-app within 2 days.
Okay.
I'll look at it, review it, I'll get it back to
And
you.
then they're applying for a commission meeting that would be in.
It would be for the fall with, we call it the winter, which is, January. I think we have it January, the first week of January 4th or 5th, I think.
So if they get your response, you say, go ahead, it's November 15th, now you have a month.
Roughly, no, you're gonna have about 3 weeks to get the application in, if you wait till the very last minute.
So, so this is why we're really yeah, so you really get this done in September so that they can get your stamp of approval to start putting together their projects. So
Exactly.
Really have.
So then I can say, okay, now you're good, you got everything submitted, it's gone through the application and we'll, they've got all their documents already put together, so I can then say, all right, this one's done. And then everything is wrapped up before the holidays in order for us to make recommendations on everything to the January meeting.
Right, because when they show up to January meeting, at that point, you work like everything should be.
We either say yea or nay,
Yes,
you know.
right, buttoned up.
Yeah, exactly. We either say, yeah, we recommend for consideration for approval, or we recommend, you know, this will not be awarded.
Right, and then January, they award it, then you go into contracting process. Right, let's get it done.
Usually we try to get the contracts out within 2 or 3 weeks,
Mhm.
Depending on how many, you know, how many applicants were submitted and approved for all the other programs. It can take up to months.
Right.
To just bear with us, and so that's something I learned here, and then but you as an applicant have to turn it around quickly, because we've seen them sit on your end. And then, of course, the commissioners are asking, hey, how come the money is not getting paid soon enough?
So it's not like it's one project, it's,
I'm one program.
yeah, but like just your program at that meeting, there's gonna be, I'm trying to think after this last January, right, there were 7 or 8.
We had our very first, I think, 17 applications.
Yeah.
And of course, I think only one went forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
That was the first,
that was the first round.
but like this past round, there was a bunch going.
No, we had on the pre-apps, we only had, I believe 4, and then 2 that were recommended for application.
Okay.
Actually, 3 of the 4 in their application, and 1 did submit for whatever reason.
So the planning grants, this is why you still have money left over. People come through with planning grants, but the planning grants are just a small dollar one.
They're up to 100,000.
Versus, you know, somebody coming in with a $1 million waste energy.
For battery storage.
Right.
I'm looking for geothermal. Have you guys got something out there that you have found? I'm open to it, especially some of these counties. If you're a manufacturer trying to expand, get a city and a community, the county to try to help you with that project. You know, especially if you're in the energy sector.
So you talked a lot workforce, power generation, some of the other big buckets like some supply chain
Yeah.
vendors, fitting into that, like, someone wants to do a factory to build an energy component, that's like, maybe that's some sprinkler technology, maybe it's line technology, sensors, how does that fit into your
So I'll give you 3 that have happened in the last 3 months. I believe it or not, I've had 3 inquiries about solar manufacturing panels. Okay. And so I've turned those over to the EDP for, hey, go find me a site.
Yeah.
Okay, find me a site, fun part of this, okay, whether it's the planning side or whether it's if they already have a site, they're looking to expand their current operation into that location. Now you're in the execution side. So that's
So supply chain fits in there, even though
Exactly.
they're not making the solar panels, the fact that they're making that energy.
Exactly.
Still interesting, development, right?
if you did relays and or parlay into the relays of the energy sector.
Yeah.
Transformers fall into that whole line, grid resiliency, the ones for drones, that's all energy driven, because they were looking at, hey, we're looking at doing the whole certification program on energy infrastructure. So both co-op signed on, Dominion signed on, other utilities signed on. And so you had a wealth of supporters just sign on one particular example. So they're out there. Anything related to the energy, especially grid resiliency, if you're looking at, hardening the line, or if you're looking at, hey, this is how much we could save. I'm not particularly keen on the energy efficiency side, but if you're telling me how you're going to save 1 megawatt of energy, it's the same thing as generating 1 megawatt.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you have to convince me.
Right. You gotta have the numbers. Say
The numbers have to work,
and that's where the payback, like the Dandel, right?
Mhm.
They had very clear, laid out for how
they did. I worked with them closely on it.
This is where I plug DEIC a little bit. So for anybody who is a county, and is looking for projects or has project ideas in mind, Jerry can help you identify vendors. We can also potentially help identify vendors, or someone who's looking to come into Virginia, someone who's looking to build manufacturing capacity. So that's another area we'd be happy to just sort of help and help organize for somebody who's trying to put together an application. So they can reach out to Jerry for help with that. You can always reach out to Braden or Bobby or I for anything with that.
I think the last thing we haven't covered is the challenges of, especially if you're looking at building a particular entity, and when I say entity, a business, and you're looking to generate your own generation and interconnect. The interconnect process, it can be a very time-consuming process if you don't understand it.
Yes.
Okay, and the dynamics associated with what goes into that. So again, if you're looking to do a study on what that looks like, and you've got the particular business in a particular area that you say, look, I want to self-generate my own electricity. Here's my particular fuel to do that. And you're going to do everything behind the meter. Just know that there's a process for the interconnection. I will definitely entertain that part of it as well.
Okay.
So that's something I think some people forget that there's that process you have to look at.
Yeah.
So
Well, threshold based too on different, what part of the system, how much you're trying to connect with.
are you going distribution or are you going transmission?
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I've had some very good projects that I personally been involved with where, the utility was going to charge them an added facilities fee by adding that third array of solar. And I'm like, well, then don't go with a third array of solar, put battery storage on that, offset the battery storage into feeding that particular pump. I haven't posted this one, right? I did this one about 2-3 years ago before I came here. And what I did is I saved them $60,000 in added facilities costs from the utility. And I told them to put that money into their energy storage or battery storage, which I think cost them about $20,000 or $25,000. That became their capital cost, and they still were able to save their energy, not having to do it and not have to be hit with those things. So it does exist. You got to know the system, and you got to know the questions to ask. So
And that's why working with TRRC and yourself, and so value.
exactly. So I'm trying to be utilized as a resource. Commissioners know it because they have me engaged a lot with some of their people, saying, hey, we're looking at doing this. Can you work with this entity, see what you can find out and figure out? Like, okay. So it's, I have a relationship with the commission, which has been great. great. It's worked out really well. So they, you know, I'd like to say at least on some I'm on speed dial, so it works out really good. Going, oh, I gotta take this call. And
All right. Want to stall for questions, or we're just amazing. We've answered every question that anybody has. Good.
The only questions we had, I put in the guidelines, I put in a link to our last
Okay.
YouTube, the first YouTube.
Yeah.
Video webinar, lunch and learn on this, that has more details.
I have one from Virginia Williams here. Thank you for your question, Virginia. It says, can we apply for an implementation grant that has a planning component with the release of the implementation portion contingent on the outcome of the planning portion? We are considering a project that has an infrastructure component, but that would occur after we identify the ideal location. So sounds like planning portion, or maybe some of the implementation funds to go to site selection, but then the bulk of the funds for implementation of that.
I'd have to see what that really entails.
Mm,
I would say just email me and let's set the time to connect, and happy to do that. This week's pretty good. Tomorrow's open, Wednesday's open, and Thursday's crazy.
Pretty ready to go. They just haven't picked the site. Good work.
I would say that, yeah, I would say, again, I'd have to get more information. It's, you know, it's, to really kind of flesh that one out a little bit more. But
So say, Virginia, this is a really good opportunity for you to also engage with the economic development organizations that have those sites. So depending on where you're looking at, the Virginia Gateway regions of the world, the Plan RVAs of the world, even your county, if you're specifically looking at a specific county, going to the Hanover County Economic Development Department or the Chesterfield, whatever, wherever you may be, none of those are in your region. I'm sorry, Greensville or Brunswick or Danville or Smithville, any of those, right? And going, the counties themselves have economic development departments, and they know mega sites all the way down to 2-acre sites. And so your local county and regional EDOs. And then with that site stuff, DEDP also has actually a database that you can pull up and look through available sites on DEDP's website or Dominion Energy. If you're in a Dominion territory, Dominion Energy Economic Development is a good resource for browsing available sites of various sizes, existing infrastructural interconnects. And that would marry up directly with what you'd be able to then bring on the implementation side. And there's organizations that also have site planning and study grants as well that can probably get layered in. So
I can't believe there's no request for questions. That's too easy. You guys, virtual land, come on.
We're too
see here.
too good.
We have one from Caroline with RS Systems and RS Fuel Systems, expanding. Oh, it's not a question, it's just what she does. So Caroline, congrats, she make it cool.
All right.
Okay, I encourage you, Caroline, to put one in, especially if you're looking to expand an operation. And again, that's one I've been asked to look at expanding an operation. It's going to be energy focused in Chicago footprint, and they're running into Richmond. I'm like, yeah, why not?
The co-ops. So the co-ops could lead projects themselves as well, right?
Correct. So I know co-ops are looking at different things, especially, you know, the one thing I've developed good relationship, at least two of the various, 1, 2, 3 of the various co-ops out there. And one of the things I've encouraged them is you got to look at capital projects that would normally not get funded unless we had your help. And you're gonna have to convince me. And you're gonna have to show that you didn't have that in the budget. I mean, I know how to ask questions that came from that world.
Well, they're more resource constrained than
Exactly.
than our larger utilities.
So, and we know that they got to build it into their base, their rate base, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, but they're also, you know, caught between what they got purchased on the open market, what they have agreements with. So I get all. So it's just, you know, show me how this is going to help, you know, speed up that approval process of what you have planned maybe 3 years. It's worked out really well. I've developed really good relationships with many of the utilities and co-ops and various stakeholders. I made an effort.
Do you think the legislation, just to get your kind of personal opinion, legislation that kind of opened the aperture of services that co-ops can provide to large energy users is going to be beneficial to South Side and Southwest Virginia as they look to kind of maybe stop being pure price takers and be able to play a little bit more in the generation market more directly, or at least services market for their large clients?
You know, you know, it's interesting when you look at how, you know, utilities in general operate, right? They're regulated based on the ACC here, right? And then you've got the co-ops that have their programs, right? And then you have like Danville has their particular setup and arrangements that they do. They all have a uniqueness that because of how they've grandfathered in from previous regulation that they all have their various benefits.
Yeah.
And sometimes those benefits are geared towards one particular segment of their particular territory.
Yeah.
So in some cases, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Right. In other cases, like, hey, we carved out ours, you know, 50, 100 years ago, whatever that grandfathered is. And you just have to know that's going to be their benefit unless, you know, something has changed, the terms change or whatever, the regs are changed. You hope that's not the case because that's why they exist today. So I'm really adamant about, hey, whatever's been carved down the past is, you know, they have that right. They should keep that right. Yeah, that's just me.
Bobby, you made a good point. If you're watching this, there's something we didn't get to already about like the application process, the application itself, that we have a couple of the past versions that we did.
Yeah.
And it's Jerry's like, we really walked through the application.
Link directly to that lunch and learn on
Okay.
YouTube. So that
Okay.
walk through, you know, the guidelines and the whole program.
Okay, so the walkthrough we've done before, so you can find that online. You can find that with Bobby, link to it. Otherwise, get it in. If you have questions, reach out to Jerry. If you're looking for a cool technology vendor, you can reach out to us or Jerry. We're happy to help however we can.
But that's your plug, right? That's what you.
That's why we're here, yeah.
Exactly. That's why they're here. They're great people to work with.
But otherwise, get them in, help Jerry get money out the door, and get some jobs.
And I'll leave you with this one sentiment. With what I have left in the account, it'd be great for me to spend it on
You.
I want to be able to go here and I spend all the remaining dollars right now. And I told the commissioners that they shake their head, they're okay, let me get out here. Now, it doesn't mean the fund goes away.
No, I was gonna say, if you do that, they're
Gonna replenish it. But yeah, but I'd love to be like, yeah, so I'd love to be able to say, hey, you know, I got 100% of it up and going for that. So
yeah, man, great. All right, so reach out to Jerry. Let's all help Jerry make his dream come true. Get 6 million out the door, get it into South and Southwest Virginia. Let's get some energy projects happening.
sounds good. Thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks,
Take care,
Jerry. Give me
everybody.
a couple minutes back. Have a great day.